So students, today we will start with the new topic, and that is the metabolism. We are only left with the last part, and this part will have the metabolism and the details of the enzyme, and finally we will be ending this chapter. I think it has been a very long chapter. So what is metabolism? So far in junior classes you might have learned that the reactions which go on inside a living organism or living system, all together those reactions are called as metabolism. Let's take easiest example. When we talk about digestion taking place in our stomach, or digestion taking place, starch digestion taking place in the mouth, or protein digestion taking place in the intestines, or in the stomach, we understand digestion is the breaking of the complex food molecules into simpler form, simpler absorbable form. And once they are absorbed, what happens? Once they are absorbed, they are supposed to be used now to form complex molecules again, because when we consume plant protein cannot be straight away changed into animal protein or human protein. So it has to be first broken down into amino acids. This is called digestion. And once amino acids are formed, these amino acids are again joined with the help of peptide bonds, and animal protein or human protein, for example, muscle protein is formed. So these two types of reactions which go on inside a living organism together are called as metabolism. So the word metabolism was introduced by Shawn in 1839, and metabolism include all the chemical reactions which keep going in the living system. And remember, metabolic pathways can lead to the formation of complex substances, like I told you, animal protein in the human body, or from complex substances to simple substances, like we talked about plant protein or animal protein if we are eating non-veg, changing into simple amino acids. This is called as formation of complex substance, formation of the simple substances from the complex substances. And these two reactions are called as the anabolic reaction, formation of complex substances, and the catabolism, formation of these simple substances. So remember, two pathways are there, anabolic pathways and catabolic pathways. So what is anabolic pathway? It's the build-up reaction which involve the synthesis of complex substances from the simple one, like I told example, animal protein formed in human body or muscle proteins formed in the human body from the amino acids. And in this process, remember, energy is required. And the catabolic pathways involve the orderly breakdown of the complex substances into simple, like I told the example, plant proteins are broken down, or the animal we have consumed, if we are non-vegetarian, animal protein which we consume is broken down into simpler form, that is the amino acids. And in this process energy is liberated. Remember, photosynthesis is anabolic, respiration is catabolic. So just remember this way. So metabolic pathways are multi-step process. Please remember that it is not a single step and huge energy released, or single step and huge energy is consumed. It is a multi-step process, and the detail of this concept will start when we will do plant physiology and human physiology, because these reactions, all these multi-step reactions, you will be learning then. So metabolic pathway is not a single step pathway, it's a multi-step pathway, and it can be a linear pathway or it can be a circular pathway. So detail again in the plant physiology and human physiology will come. I can just give you example. In 10th class you learned about the glycolysis, that respiration, the common step of respiration, whether it is aerobic respiration or anaerobic respiration, the common step is always the first step, and that first step is glycolysis. And remember, glycolytic pathway is a linear pathway. But when we talk about TCA cycle or Krebs cycle, that cycle goes in a circular manner. So that means metabolic pathway is a multi-step pathway. It can be circular or linear. And remember, The compounds formed in this process enter into this process. That means there are links between whether it is linear or circular, all metabolic pathways are linked here and there with each other. That means compounds formed as the products or the intermediate products which are formed in between, because there are many steps. So any step pathway is capable of going into the next pathway if it is required. That means they all are linked with each other. And remember, these processes are controlled by enzymes. So a metabolic pathway can have formation of complex substances with the use of energy, which is called anabolism, or a complex substances could be broken down into simple with the release of energy. This is called catabolism. So when energy is released, pay attention that when energy is released, ADP will change into ATP. So an ATP coming out means energy is released, and then it is stored in the form of ATP. And then whenever it is required, ATP would be used, and then what will happen? ADP will come out. So this shows that there is always a link between anabolism and catabolism. Now there is one term which I skipped, that is the turnover. So what exactly is turnover? See, we need to understand one point, that the living system is always in a constant metabolism. There is always reactions going on in the living system. So there is always molecules getting formed, molecules getting used up, and molecules getting transformed because they are linked with each other, the reactions. So all these rates of formation of biomolecules and the rate of utilization of biomolecules and the transformation of the biomolecules is altogether called in a living system as the turnover. Remember, organisms are never in an equilibrium state, because if there is equilibrium, then what will happen? Function won't be there. But function here means turnover. There is always function or work going on in the living system, and that is only possible if there is unequilibrium state, or you can say non-equilibrium state. So always producing and transforming the types of molecule, and this process requires a lot of energy. So remember, turnover definition is important. Now the next is how do you distinguish these two type of reactions?